What is good, everyone, and welcome back to the Nostalgia Plus Ultra podcast. My name is Nostalgia. Joining me is As Told by Zoe. What's good, my guy?
What is up? It is
Hey,
good to be back.
man. I'm so happy I get to say that again, the full intro, because it has been a long time, man. I'm so excited to get back.
Been
to
about
recording.
3 months.
I know it's been forever. Our schedules didn't really line up the way we thought they would, and then plus I was finishing up some stuff with grad school, and spring sports got busy. I'm officially, I guess, technically unemployed at the moment now. So
Yeah.
my last, I guess, event, my last day of work for the place I used to work for when it comes to college athletics was May 12th. And so I'm officially doing some part-time work, but for the most part, I'm kind of unemployed until, who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of months with this summer. But, I'm happy to be back recording, happy to be back talking about something I like talking about, because there's been a lot of music and anime and other stuff going on. And so I'm just glad we get to be back on the air, man. It feels good.
Yeah, for sure.
So moving forward, though, before we get into the main topic of today, we've kind of we're going to start changing up our format for how we're doing episodes. I know me and Zoe talked about it for past couple of days. So I know during our last episode, the hyperbolic time chamber, that we said, oh yeah, the next one we do is going to be the video game one. That became a lot harder of a task than we originally thought. It was going to be a lot. We thought it was going to be a lot easier.
Harder.
We thought it was going to be a lot easier, but that's still coming. But it's going to take a lot more time than we'd originally thought it was going to take. So, we're trying to split it up between, 3 different types of episodes. Two that are a little more casual, one's a little more themed, like this one's going to be, and then one that's going to be 100% jukebox episodes. I feel like we don't have too many of those, even though our main focus, one of the main focus of this podcast was to talk about music, and we rarely do that sometimes. So I think that just having those more frequent jukebox episodes will be more beneficial. So with all that stuff out of the way, it is time to talk about today's topic, which was something that Zoe, you'd brought up to me a couple weeks before we started recording this episode. So why don't you tell the group what you had for us?
So, how all great minds now get their ideas from TikTok. I saw this interesting TikTok where a couple saw 2 movies in different orders to see how it would how they would react to the endings that they got.
Yeah.
And there were 2 anime movies. One's called To Every You I've Loved Before, and the other one's called To Me, The One Who Loved You, which I found out a little bit they were mangas.
Oh.
These aren't original movies, which I thought they were, but they were mangas. So I don't know if the same gimmick applies of reading one first affects your ending.
Okay, I kind of wanted to get to, by the way, for
that
people
was
listening,
the gimmick of these 2 movies.
By the way, as far as, listeners into the pod right now, we're going to be spoiling this. This is kind of a review of,
huge spoilers of these 2 movies.
Right. So if you don't want to be spoiled on these 2 movies and you saw that they're in your watch list and you wanted to know more about them, go watch them first and then come back to this episode. I think it's important to kind of do that, because I want anybody who's going to watch them blind, so you can get a real reaction. So what me and Zoe ended up doing was I watched To Every You I Loved Before. Oh yeah, no, I watched, my fault. Yeah, I did. Okay.
Yeah,
To Every You I Loved Before, and then to Me, The One Who Loved You, and Zoe watched them in reverse. And so basically our perspectives of the movies in general might be a little bit different, but I think it's good for the podcast. for just for content.
I think the way the credits rolled, I think I saw the quote unquote correct order.
Yes, I was about to say that. Literally, like to be completely honest with you, like when I watched this, like I was like, yeah, when I watched To Me, I was like, this should be the first one you watch before the other one.
There's a lot in To Every You that is, I was sitting there thinking like, wow, Taylor must have been really confused at this part.
Holy shit, I was. It's actually insane.
But the whole point of To Me is so confusing.
What's funny is like honestly, what's funny is like, so obviously you're supposed to watch I mean, you're not supposed to, but you can't. It's kind of like, as far as a linear narrative is concerned,
yeah.
As far as the linear narrative is concerned, you're kind of supposed to watch To Me before you watch To Every You. But like, I understood To Me more because I had watched To Every You before that, if that makes sense. So like, let me get into it. So we have like
let's start getting into the thick of it.
Okay, so as far as just the movies in general, like separate the two movies from each other, which one like did you like enjoy the most? Because I think for me it was
To Every You.
Yes, 100%.
I thought it was way more concise. I thought it was way more focused in its storytelling. Aside from the crazy shit that goes on in these movies,
yes,
as a movie, it is much more. You could follow it easier, even when they get into the world shifting and for those of you who are still listening and don't care about spoilers, these movies are about parallel universes.
Yes. So for those that are listening that I guess don't really care about spoilers per se, essentially it follows one guy, how do you say
Koyomi,
my bad. Koyomi, whose father is a part of this like research institute that deals in parallel universes and understanding how the phenomenon of parallel universes. And to break it down, I will say though, the world building of how they break it down was kind of clever, where they're like, there's a bunch of parallel universes with different branching things that happen, like, and then there's certain things called like a phase shift where like you might end up being in a parallel universe without knowing it, kind of like how like you may misplace one of your belongings, but as soon as you go back to double check that same place, you find it where it were supposed to be. And they're basically saying like, oh yeah, that was probably you phase shifting because in a different timeline you put it somewhere else, if that makes sense. And I thought that was pretty cool.
I thought it was interesting. It was like you phase shift, but into a reality that is almost identical, because then there are different realities where things start getting more crazy, or not crazy, but more different.
Yes.
Like the character Kazune, I didn't even notice till the end of the second movie that she had brown hair in the first movie.
Okay, yeah, that's one thing I didn't want to get into.
And she had purple hair in To Every You,
which is crazy. I guess like it's a completely different timeline. But essentially, it follows Komui, and to put it in the most simple of terms, it breaks it down as far as like the branching stories. It breaks down depending on who he decides to live with when his parents get a divorce. So for To Every You I've Loved Before, the movie takes place from the perspective of he goes to live with his mom when his parents get divorced. But in To Me,
he lives with his dad.
He goes to live with his dad, and so like that kind of makes things a little more simple when it comes to like telling the story, which I think definitely helped. And I had like a bunch of different theories about certain things that just were not accurate, just because they boiled it down to, did he go live with his mom or did he go live with his dad?
Yeah.
And so I thought that was kind of helped out, because you get like, that's one thing about like time travel animes or just time travel stories in general, or parallel universe stories in general, where that just kind of like lose me, because it's like you could really just make whatever the fuck you want to up, honestly.
And then shit was confusing for me until I realized the the two Koyomis from their respective movies are the ones that get shifted into each other's universe.
Yes.
So okay, it's not multiple Koyomis, it's just the two.
Yes, so like basically what they kind of explain, and so like me watching To Every You first definitely kind of confused me on certain things. But when you watch like To Me, they explain like, oh yeah, Komui might just have a higher propensity to like understand phase or what's it called, phase shifting or parallel shifting, and like moving into parallel worlds, like, you know, subconsciously or whatever. And they kind of explain how it works in To Me, and they don't explain it in To Every You. So it's like it got confusing at first, but like the instance with, I think I wrote this down where I said I wrote in all caps, wait, he shifted right to the point after his granddad dies and he takes Yuno for a walk. And then I was like, oh, it makes sense, because then when like when the I guess I can't remember which like parallel Koyumi it is, but it's like one of them is pissed off that Yuno's dead, so he phase shifted to a reality in which Yuno's still
was alive,
but his granddad's dead now, and so he gets upset and wants to like have his stay with his mom overnight and like sleep in her bed. And the opposite is like where he wishes for his granddad to still be alive, but then Yuno's dead, and so he like asks his granddad for advice and wants to stay in his bed. And I was like, oh, that's crazy to think about how they switched. And then Kazune is in one of the shots, like she's in the background. Like, do you remember, like there's a point in To Every You where she's like, oh, you saved me, where like obviously Kazune is like kind of lying to him about the 85 shifts, right?
Oh, the rabid dog was Yuno?
Yeah, no. There's another, like if you go back and watch it, right? There's a point where Kazune is like behind the little wall, and I think there's like a second dog that's been coming after her, but that like Yuno like scares that dog off, I think.
Okay. And
so like I think, which is crazy because like it sparks like a whole other group of theories, because it's like, what the hell? Like, what do you like? Because she was like, oh yeah, she was faking. It's like, oh yeah, I'm from a space and time where it's 85 different shifts, so the timeline is unbelievably different than the one I'm in right now.
Which would make sense because of her hair color, I guess.
It would, but then like she like takes the sticker off of her like watch that tells her where the how many shifts she's been through, and it says zeros across the board. So like it was like weird, because I was like, did Komui really save her from that dog then? Because that would make things a little bit difficult for her to say that she's from the zero timeline.
Maybe it was a red herring, maybe for the audience. Like, it was just so happened because I would think these Komois are very similar. In both timelines. He kind of doesn't make friends. Even in the timeline where he meets Shiori, he's all about Shiori. In the timeline with Kazune, he doesn't make friends until pursuing Kazune.
Facts.
So I don't think it's like that crazy. I think it's more just like the filmmakers trying to confuse people.
Potentially, yeah. I think I guess so. We could probably just go into just the movies themselves as singular entities, or just like obviously how they connect, but like I kind of want to start just going just straight on To Me, The One Who Loved You, just straight up.
Sure.
Because I think that's probably the more confusing one that the two of us will mutually agree on. This was most confusing one. So I think it was cool for them to actually show you like how people shift. Yeah. And the metaphor, the imagery that they use for like people like, glitching out and going to a different timeline. And I think the way in which they bounce around in this movie was kind of annoying, because like it goes from a point where he's like 90 years old, or like, he's like 60 years old, and then it jumps back to when he's like 8. And I was like, okay, that made no sense.
That's a big part of To Me. They jump around a lot.
Yeah.
A lot, to the point where at one point I was like, okay, is this the kind of time travel like in Kingdom Hearts where you have to go to a certain point but your body needs to be there and now you're the age of that body? Like, I was so confused.
Yeah, no, it's a weird thing because, like, I said, like, earlier, like, when you're doing time travel or just parallel universes, you can kind of just make stuff up as you go, which if it's consistent and like it flows and it makes sense, then I really don't have a problem with it.
That's what pissed me off about this movie. The first movie, I mean, let's rewind. To me, breaks its own rules. To every you, doesn't.
No, yeah.
Which in turn makes shit more confusing. Because the whole thing was, to shift, you gotta be in the fucking pod and think, like, take me to a world where Yuno's alive.
Yeah, but you could also do that with, like, you could also just, like, when they explain how Komoi could do it, where it was like he just would, like, he could had a higher, like, aptitude for doing it anyways, regardless of the tube.
Yeah, hold up. But my whole thing was when they first explain it.
Yes.
Shiori says, "Get in the tube, think about this world that you want to go to," and he goes, "I want to go to a world where Yuno is alive." He ends up going to that parallel universe, but it just so happens that his grandpa's dead.
Yes.
That is interesting. That's cool. That's kind of like this, genie, I wish for this, and then the genie kind of fucks you over.
Yeah.
Okay, so Komoi and Shiori, they meet as kids. Shiori helps him shift, and then after that they become friends. This is like the point of this is how the movie plays along. The movie to me, they grow up together, they go to middle school together, and it's literally they hang out with no one else but each other.
Yeah.
They get to high school. I think they're in high school.
It's implied that they are.
And then,
I guess.
They obviously they like each other. They're in a relationship. Then it gets really weird,
bro. Okay, real quick, side tangent. I wrote in my notes. Where'd I put it? Fuck, where'd I put it? So they pulled both a domestic girlfriend and Toradora all in one scene.
Bro, okay, so their parents, the reason why they met was because their parents work in the same facility.
Research facility, yes.
They're both scientists. And it just so happens that both their parents are divorced. So Shiori and Komoi's parents, they work with each other, and then they decide, they're like, oh, we kind of like each other, we're gonna get married. I immediately wrote, man, not step sibling shit, this is weird.
Literally.
But they also agreed with me, because they were like, if my mom and your dad get married, we can't get married.
Yes, but then the dad came in and was like, oh, you can still do that, right?
Which made it even weirder. But then, so they decide, this is the part that pisses me off. They decide, let's shift to a universe where your parents never get divorced. Komoi tells Shiori, where your parents never get divorced. But my dad still has to be divorced from my mom. That's how I met you. So if your parents never get divorced, we can get married. Okay, fine. Yeah, they both get in the tube, and the phrasing pisses me off because they didn't say, let's go to a universe where her parents never got divorced. They both said, take me to a universe where we can get married.
Yes.
So there should be no fuckery. If there's any fuckery, it's like, oh, Komoi's mom died. But then they shift, and Shiori gets hit by a fucking car.
She got truck-hunned. I was like, oh my god.
So that's where the rules, they don't follow the rules.
Okay, but here's my thing that I thought was interesting, and I was like, I hope I don't know why they didn't address it, or like I thought they were gonna do this where, you know how basically like there's like, oh, if you like wish for something, essentially you're gonna, like when you want to parallel shift, you're gonna shift to that kind of area at the expense of that person who's in the parallel universe that you're trying to go to switches with you, right?
Yes.
And basically saying that your parallel shifts have to do with something that you want, a timeline that has something to do with your choices, right? Instead of the choices that are outside of your control. So I thought that it was kind of dumb that both of them were like, let's go to a timeline where neither of our parents divorced, because of the fact that those aren't the choices that they made. They didn't say mom and dad get a divorce. They didn't make that choice.
Yeah.
Those are two choices that both of their sets of parents made. So it wouldn't make sense for them to go to phase parallel shift to a time. I keep saying phase shift like it's Apex Legends or something like, or like it's Titanfall. Where they would parallel shift into a timeline where that would be part of their choices. See how does that make sense? So I didn't get that part. That was stupid.
So the main conflict to me is the fact that Shiori dies at the same point where she's trying to shift back into reality zero, her reality. Yes. And because of that, she becomes
a disembodied ghost,
a time shift ghost.
Yes.
Who's it's explained later, she's like kind of connected to Komoi's body.
Because they shifted together.
Yes.
So like they call it like imaginality is like I guess your consciousness.
That part I understood.
Yes, they basically like their consciousness is linked together because they were in the tube together.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime he was going to shift, like when you try to go to different parallel universes to find her
ghost
every time they shifted, they're connected, so they're going to shift together.
But she was now stuck at that crosswalk. That's the main conflict. And then he grows up and becomes a scientist to try to save her.
Yes.
Also, before we continue, what the fuck is up with crosswalks? Yuno gets hit by a car, but then he shifts to where Yuno's alive. If Yuno doesn't get hit by a car, his grandpa gets hit by a car. And then he tries to fucking marry his girlfriend. She then gets hit by a car. There is a scene, the beginning of To Every You, where old Komoi sees young Shiori, and he's in the crosswalk, and I literally typed out, where is it? Get out of the fucking crosswalk for the love of God. Because I was like, I swear they're gonna make him get hit by a car. Oh my God.
Bro, crosswalks and car accidents. Name a better iconic anime duo.
Bro,
it's actually insane.
It was like, how fucked can this guy's life be?
Dude, okay, we're gonna get to it when we talk about the second movie, but more trauma hits him regardless in the other timeline with his child.
What I also typed out that really bothered me was like, this is so weirdly selfish of them.
High key.
Because like, that's Shiori, that's your mom. Komoi, that's your dad. They're happy together. But I guess they're kids, but I don't know.
Yeah, they were like 14 at the time.
It made me not like them.
It was kind of annoying. Like, oh yeah, like my dad is happy that he met your mom. Your mom's happy that like she met my dad. I don't want that.
Yeah.
Because I love you. It's like, okay, at some point we got to be adults here. You know what I'm saying? let's figure this out.
I typed, you gotta be joking. And then in all caps, was this not a world where they're supposed to get married? Why is everyone getting hit by a car?
But also my thing is this, okay, so they're gonna, omit that rule about, going to a timeline in which certain events happen that are within your control, right?
Sure.
They omit that part, whatever. Why didn't they just why didn't they parallel shift to a point in time where both of them are like in a relationship together?
I guess
You see how that doesn't make sense?
at this point in the story, they didn't know how to time shift. They only knew how to parallel shift. So they
the optional time shift. I remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like later on in the story, they develop time shifting, which has to do with time travel. This one was like they're shifting into another universe at the same time. Like
Yes.
like May 21st, 2023.
Like time period. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That makes sense then. Because I was about to say, I was like, they couldn't just like go jump to a time in which they are like married. I was like,
That's why they were the same age.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Also, same as you. Get out of the street. Like, what are we? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. How are her parents all the way on the sidewalk and she's in the middle of the street? What was parallel you doing?
Right. Were you just like standing in the rain in the middle of the crosswalk? Like, what are we doing?
And then after that, when she's stuck in a coma, she already stuck in a coma because her imaginality's all out of whack.
Yeah.
That's when his dad goes, y'all could have still gotten married if we got married.
It's like, sir, are we?
Yeah, way to make your son feel better.
And I know, for real. But then I do like the characterization of the two like older, like the parents or whatever, because like, they're so deep in their like scientific research, they don't really have the emotional range to like actually be sad for their kids dying. And I think that was a pretty nice touch because of like, just, I guess, the nature of how you see like the parallel universe shifting and how like deep into the research everybody gets, including
Kamui.
Komoy. I want to say, I can't. It's
Komoyi,
Koyomi.
Koyomi?
Koyomi, yes. Koyomi.
Oh, it is Koyomi. I was saying it backwards.
Koyomi. Yeah, I'm gonna forget that every single time. But even like Koyomi, right? He gets deep into his work too, and like I think it also like affects like the other, I guess the next timeline for the next movie, which is pretty interesting how they kind of set that part up. But one random thing that I thought was hilarious is his shoe game is immaculate.
He's wearing SBs.
He's wearing Nike SBs in the first movie. Then he puts on Nike Cortezes later on in that same movie. And then when him and Shiori shift into that other parallel universe, he has red Air Force Ones on.
I was like,
that's
those.
Fire. I was like,
and
I was like, Nike sign off on this? Because it literally says Nike on the tag.
It says Nike, yeah. That was funny.
Oh my god. I just thought it was a random thing. I wrote that in my notes. I was like, Koyomi's shoe game is crazy.
Oh, this one, I also wrote that this one is so dramatic.
Oh yeah, it's insane.
I don't understand how like the other movie. The other movie was like kind of cute.
Yeah, it was nice. It was wholesome.
This movie, for like 40 minutes, no, 20 minutes in until the end is so dramatic.
Yeah. It's just
at a certain point, I was like, dude, let him tell a joke or something.
Please relieve the tension or something. Because when Kazune gets into the mix and she's like, they try to do it with the again random product placement with the Guinness beer. They tried to do it with that, and then it turns into like some kind of eureka moment for Koyomi.
In all caps, I wrote beer was the answer.
Because it's like, I guess the way in which I do say the way in which they explain like
the bubbles,
the parallel universe, as the bubbles, and how like they'll split off from each other and in different directions, whatever. I know a lot of people sometimes use like the branches of a tree. You know what I'm saying? So I think using the bubble analogy is a little bit of an innovative and more creative choice, I guess. But
so yes, at this point in the story, he spends the rest of his high school career studying what they call imaginary science.
Yes.
And then he doesn't go to college. He strictly just goes straight to work in the same facility where his dad and now stepmom work. And his whole thing was like, I'm gonna save Shiori, who he sees at the crosswalk where she got hit because her ghost is stuck there.
Yeah.
So no one else can see her except for him and other people.
Okay, why the hell could Kazune see her? Was that ever explained?
Because this is what I think. Because since Kazune grew up with her dad working at the facility, there are other Kazunes from other realities who have shifted. So since she isn't connected to Shiori, she couldn't see Shiori. She just said she saw like
some kind of figment that resembled a human body. Okay.
So she like willingly knew that like she could shift, and she has shifted because the rules are regular people shift a lot, but it's only like one universe over, and you never notice. So she has for sure shifted multiple universes, and that is explained into every U because of something else that has happened.
Yes. And
so I think it's all like this weird connection to that.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. So like they're able to see, or I guess I kind of able to see, and then basically their plan, or Koyomi's plan, is in order to free her from this, I need to go to a timeline in which we did not meet each other.
Which at first, because I saw this movie first, pissed me off. Because I wrote down, where they never meet, just make it a world where she didn't get hit by the car. You guys could still be together.
Well, do they not explain that?
But
or no?
I don't remember if they did. But in terms of the story that both these movies are trying to make, like I guess it fits, because we'll get to it later. But in the other movie, like it kind of won me over. I was like, okay, I get it.
Okay, so basically, I guess from my perspective, because I watched the other movie first, right? My final thoughts on To the Me Who Loved You, I was like, we'll get to this point in a second, but I was like, one, how many Koyomis have shifted to the exact point that I can't remember the exact one. I should have wrote like more context because I was live texting into my notes. So I don't remember the context for me doing that. But also I said, did Shiori shift into a different person to help a person in need? That was the one that helped at the end of the first movie. Because, okay, think about it though, right? She gives the line, part of my bucket list is to, when somebody asks me what my name is after I help them, it's my name's not important, or so-and-so, right? Or
this
like
is what Shiori said.
What Shiori wants to say, right? Then you get to the end of To Every You Have Loved Before, which we'll go into a little more detail later. There's a woman that walks up to an old and almost dying Koyomi, and she says the same thing. So, but then you go to the end of To Me, right? And that line shows up, and I think it's implied that Shiori actually like either like her connection to Koyomi breaks, I would assume.
I think what happened was the way To Me ends is Shiori is still at the crosswalk in a different universe, but she's still there. And the reason why they needed old man Koyomi to go to the crosswalk was because the imaginality of OG Koyomi from To Me shifted into his old man persona.
That's where that came from. Okay,
And
how many Koyomis have shifted to this exact point?
And
Because it
then-
looked like it was like 3 of them.
And then he needed to bring the imaginality to the crosswalk. So my understanding is that old lady is Shiori, but this is the timeline where they never met.
Yes.
So that's not Shiori using someone else. That is Shiori. This is the timeline that they never met, so she had a happy life.
That makes sense. Because also, like, but she had different hair color. I think it's just because, like,
So did Kazune.
the animation style in both of them is different. Like, Koyomi looks completely different in To You as he does in To Me as he does in To Ever You. And then same thing with Kazune. And then Shiori looks the exact same in both movies that she appears in. But so I said my last, like, I guess, note on To Me, the one who loved you, was the first movie, which is this one, is the timeline of Koyomi and Shiori never meeting. And the second movie, which is To Ever You, is how Koyomi creates that timeline. Essentially. Oh wait, no, other way around. So basically, like, the one I watched first was the timeline of Koyomi and Shiori never meeting. Right.
Yes.
That's the timeline that the OG Koyomi in To Me created in order to, like, help Shiori out. So I think that's kind of why I say you have to probably, for a more linear narrative sake, watching To Me before watching To Ever You makes sense. My bad. I mixed that with my bad.
you wanna know why? What solidifies for me why that is Shiori? Like, that is her. It's
What?
not her imaginality that possessed someone. That is her. Because when they're talking, and he asks her name, and then she says, "Oh, I'm nobody. I'm nobody special," which is what young Shiori wanted to say. But then he asks, "Oh, have we met before?" And she says, "No, we haven't. What's your name?" And instead of saying, I don't know if you notice this. It's kind of hard to notice, especially because it's in Japanese. If he stays with his dad, he has a different last name. And if he stays with his mom, he also goes by a different last name.
Yeah.
So the fact that in this reality, the reality where Koyomi never met Shiori would still technically be his stepsister, because I would still think his dad married her mom, but he's not Koyomi Haraka anymore. He's Koyomi Takasaki. So she asks him his name, and he goes, in Japanese, they always introduce by last name. He goes, "Oh, I'm Takasaki." So she goes, "I don't know that last name."
Yeah.
And then doesn't ask for his first name. So again, that kind of solidifies for me, like,
Yeah, but that also kind of messes up as far as Koyomi, the OG Koyomi's timeline in the rules that they've established. Because if it's a situation where Koyomi and Shiori have never met, it wouldn't make sense for their parents to be together, because that would mean they would have met again.
Not necessarily, because he never visits his dad.
He, from time to time, yes, but like
as a kid, but as an adult, he doesn't need to visit him because he works with him.
Yeah.
Shiori was never destined to be a scientist, so she lived her own life.
But wouldn't they still be siblings?
Yes, but when, like, because they showed his life. Not once did he, like, go to their house for, like, Christmas. Like, he spent his life with his mom and his grandma and Kazune, because he was so fucking infatuated with Kazune. He spent all his time with her. He wouldn't go. again, as an adult, he's like, I don't need to see my dad. I work with him.
Mm-hmm.
And Shiori's never gonna fucking. I guess in the real world, yeah, like your kid would come by every once in a while.
Yeah, we're running on anime logic here, so I guess that makes sense.
But I think the detail of him going by those two different last names is to tell the audience, like, the reason why she doesn't recognize him is because he's going by Takasaki, not Hidaka.
That's fair. That makes sense. So yeah, the To Me is basically just showing you like the original Koyomi and Shiori, and then To Ever You, which we're going to talk about right now, is the timeline that Koyomi creates in order for him to save Shiori. And for To Ever You I've Loved Before, again, we've said it earlier in the pod that this movie is exponentially better than To Me, just in terms of overall quality. I think it's a lot more of a wholesome story. It's a lot more just of a cohesive story, and like the twists make sense and also are delivered and executed very well.
Even when they get into, because there is a point in this movie where people start shifting more. Even those points are way more easy to follow than whatever the fuck they were doing in To Me.
Yes, 100%. It was like, I will say this though, like they don't like show like, oh, the little glitch effect where people shift. They don't do that, but they just kind of like the way in which they go, oh yeah, I either shifted, or oh, you just shifted. You know what I'm saying? Like that. The way they deliver that and they like execute that, like it was way better than the first movie.
Also, before we talk about this movie in depth, Kazune is way better than Shiori
in terms of overall character.
As a character for Koyomi, like Shiori was just weird and kind of like, again, they were selfish, so it was all about like me. But with Kazune, she was like, oh, like she was pranking him. Oh, I wrote that down. I was like, okay, she's a little prankster. I like her. But she was saying like, I like you when you're like more outspoken and more confident. And then because of that, he starts making friends.
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, so in this timeline, he's not going to become a scientist, but he still becomes a scientist with her, and she pushes him. I was like, okay, she's just better.
Yeah, no, she's cool. I think the phrase like you could really use more tact was like her being her calling card was cool, especially even in the
other reality.
To Me. To Me, because like it's funny because like Kazune serves as like a romantic interest in To Ever You, but in To Me she's basically like the rival turned best friend, where like she spent her entire like high school career trying to catch up to Koyomi because he was always like top of the class in grades and you know whatever, and like he was just like the star student, but he would like sometimes miss class or sometimes wouldn't study hard, and she was trying so hard to beat him or like be around him so she could beat him that she ended up being his friend. And then you get into To Ever You, and I think it's really cool how it's kind of a similar vibe where she still sees him as like an academic rival. And I think it was funny because at first I was like, when they were talking about how they've never like met, or how like Kazune was like joking that she was boyfriend and girlfriend with him in like a different timeline, I was like, my first thought was like, I wonder if Koyomi not making that entrance speech was the parallel shift part, where like if Koyomi never makes that speech, they don't meet, or like say Koyomi does make the speech and they meet each other on stage. Like I thought that was like, oh, that might be the key, but it wasn't. It just
so what I found very interesting was in both universes he doesn't remember her. So in To Ever You, she comes in as when they're adults to the research facility, and then they go to a karaoke bar, a private room, and she kind of lays it all out for him, like, you don't remember me, we went to school, I was always number 2, you made that acceptance speech, this and that, blah blah blah. In To Every You, as high schoolers, she decides to play some prank on him where she tells him, like, oh, I'm from the 85th world, I've been shifted, this and that. They go to a karaoke bar, private room again, and in this one she's like, I'm doing this to get back at you. And he's like, what? And she's like, you don't even remember me? He's like, no. She's like, you decided not to give the speech, so I gave the commencement speech. And then he was like, oh, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
So it was, again, there are things, that is another thing where it shows you how close, in this story's rules, it shows you how close these universes are.
Yeah. I think it was funny. I typed in my notes, like, he's the typical dense anime MC.
Yes.
Because
who's also a genius.
Yeah, he's like, she was trying to flirt with him early, and he just was not connecting the dots. And I was like, oh my god, here we go.
That, and I think, but in this, again, this movie is just more concise. I think they did that because in the first movie they show how, like, the parents are a little bit cold. In this movie they're showing how that, like, affected him, like, because he's kind of like his dad. So, like, all his friends tease him, like, he doesn't understand human emotions, interactions, to the point where him and Kazune do get together in this movie, and even when they're dating, it's kind of the typical, like, when they figure something out, he's like, oh, thanks for letting me borrow this pen, and she's like, it's eyeliner, and he's like, you wear eyeliner?
Yeah.
And then she gets mad at him because she's like, how the fuck did you not ever notice?
Yeah, exactly. He's just very aloof, which I thought was, pretty funny. Like, just, he's, like father, like son. Like, is this really, that's really all I can really boil it down to. But I think it was, it's a lot more of a wholesome story. Mm-hmm. And then, like, it was just, like, super weird how you get towards the end and then, like, think of the situation where, okay, when he grows up to be an adult, right? Mm-hmm. And I think this is where, like, the timeline stuff, I guess it becomes its own story, the parallel stuff, where Koyomi cannot escape trauma, where they're at this event with their child. Because at this point, Kazune and Koyomi are married, have a kid, and they're, like,
happy
living
life, happy
lives. They go to some festival, and some lunatic with a knife ends up killing his son, which was probably one of the more insane things I think I've seen in a story like this, right? Like, you don't really expect anything like that to happen because it's, like, a very wholesome story. Like, there's some tough stuff going on. Like, obviously, like, main girl gets hit with a car, but they don't show it, right? They literally show, like, the guy with the knife running by, slashing the knife. The kid falls over and there's blood everywhere. And I had to pause it for a second. I was like, what just happened? Like, what is going on?
But then that's where this story also gets confusing, because even though it was from the perspective of Koyomi, that wasn't OG Koyomi.
It's not.
That is to set up this little arc. And now that I'm thinking about it, this does kind of feel like a manga, because it sets up this little arc where the Kazune from that universe shifts into OG Koyomi's universe, because in that universe, their kid's not dead.
Or, like, just not like OG Koyomi from To Me, but like the Koyomi
from To Every You.
Yes,
the one that
Koyomi from Every You.
The one that we've been following the entire movie.
Yes.
So it's interesting how they did it from Koyomi's perspective instead of Kazune's.
Yes,
when
but
she's kind of the whole catalyst of this. And what I also found interesting was because she made a decision so grand, when she comes back, she can't be Kazune 0 anymore.
yeah,
But she's Kazune 1.2, which is the closest you can get to 0, so they just reset her watch.
yeah,
And she's 0 again.
because she shifted to like the 14th universe and not like 1 or 2 or like 85 like she claimed she did when she was a kid. She went to 14, which is nuts. And then what was crazy was like the the way in which they kind of execute that was crazy. And then you think about the timeline differences between To Every You and To Me, because in To Me, the optional parallel shift or the optional time shift is a thing that's already been established and is something that has been like, you know, properly vetted and used in everyday life.
Yeah.
But then To Every You, you get to a point where like that technology hasn't been established yet, and so like people don't understand how to do it yet. You know what I'm saying? So like now that when Kazune does it, it's seen as some kind of taboo thing that could potentially be a problem.
Yeah,
which I thought was pretty cool.
His dad tells him like there was an optional shift that was accepted under Kazune's name, and then it's this whole thing where Koyomi has to race back home to find where this Kazune from World 13 is, and like she has to kind of they did what fucking Marvel did with
Event like Endgame.
No, what's her name? Scarlet Witch, where she was hopping through dimensions to find her kids that aren't dead.
Oh yeah.
And then so she finds her kid that isn't dead, and then even her kid's like, "Where's my real mom?" And then like it hits her in the gut. I was like, "Oh shit, that's kind of like." Again, even when people start shifting in this movie, it's more, they explain it better or something. I don't know. I understood what was happening.
Yeah, and they kind of like they just executed it way better. Honestly, that's really all it came down to. I think it was just like the execution of it was good, and then like the ending, like we already kind of touched on it, which I thought was crazy, where it was where the Kazune of To Me ends up contacting or like shifting into the body of the To Every You Kazune and essentially writing herself a letter, which I thought was a great choice and a phenomenal choice.
That's where she's explaining this plan of, you need to let your Koyomi go to the crosswalk at this specific time, because that is when Shiori from this universe will be at that crosswalk and their imaginalities will meet. So the imaginalities at the end of To Me, they meet and they technically die together,
I guess,
because they're ghosts. And then the Koyomi from To Every You has a passing conversation with Shiori. Doesn't even get her name.
What was also weird though is when he makes it back to the Kazune of To the Every You timeline. Hold on. Oh my god, that hurt.
Bless you.
I just sneezed really bad. That hurt really bad. When he makes it back to the To Every You Kazune, he goes, "Who are you?" So I guess which made no sense though, because like if their imaginalities have merged together and are like done, he should they should be able to switch back at that point, right?
I think this is how I understood it. Earlier in To Every You, there is something that I found really interesting because I think I would relate to it. When he asks Kazune to marry him, he checks her watch and she's shifted 2 universes.
Yes.
And then she comes back, and since it's only 2 universes, it's still almost identical because she didn't even notice that she shifted. So in both those universes, she still said yes, but he starts doubting himself. He starts to think, which Kazune said yes to me?
Yeah, I remember
And
that.
then, so when they walk down the aisle, he takes off his watch, she takes off her watch, and I literally wrote down, yeah, fuck that watch. I think the exact same thing. I'd start overthinking. So in the future, when he checks his little thing, it says error. So he starts to overthink. He starts to think, did I shift? When it wasn't him that shifted, it was the imaginality from the OG Koyomi that shifted. That's why when he comes home, he asks, who are you? But then they line it up because he asks her, so I left to go to the crosswalk this morning, right? And she goes, yes, at 10. And then he realizes, okay, I didn't shift.
Okay, I guess that makes sense because I was like, what really happened? It was like, I think that's why I said, how many Koyomis have shifted to this exact point? Because I was like, is there a third Koyomi that like shifted to maybe this part in his life, maybe, or like because it goes from like to every Yu Koyomi, then it goes to the Tumi Koyomi to who meets at the crosswalk. And then I was like, but if that's the case, then that Koyomi should be gone. And there's an error there. So I was like, did somebody else move into his body or something? Because I was like...
No, I think it still ends with to every Yu Koyomi. To every me Koyomi met up with Shiori and he's gone. Once you realize both these movies only have 2 Koyomis,
I think it makes it a little bit easier.
It starts to make a little bit more sense.
Yeah, and they kind of, and like now that I'm thinking back, they do kind of like explain, or like they do kind of make it a little bit clear that it's just 2 Koyomis, like how, like the switching of the Yuno and the Grandpa one, that kind of thing. It's kind of only implying that it's just two Koyomis, and then even in To Every You, where Koyomi has that brief moment with Shiori, like as a part of that shift.
Yeah.
Where like, you know, he is the one that has never met her, shifted into that tube and gets a glimpse of who she is, and then I guess they end up shifting back just before he goes to follow her, which I thought was like, you know, nice touch. So I guess if you think about it like that, it definitely makes a lot more sense. But yeah, I think to Every You I've Loved Before is exponentially a better movie than To Me, The One Who Loved You, because good lord.
They even say the Koyomi from To Me looks crazy because he is. It's not even like this romantic thing where he's like, I'm trying to be with the one I love. It's like he's insane.
I mean, you gotta think about the trauma and guilt that came along with he's essentially the reason why. Well, he's not the reason because they both decided to do it at the same time, but he feels responsible for Shiori becoming a disembodied figure.
I guess that makes To Me more of like this like Shakespearean tragedy.
Yeah.
Where like he ends up giving himself up, like killing himself in the reality so he could become a ghost with Shiori. But what also makes Kazune the best girl is that she helped him do it, and then she reveals like, yeah, I was a rival, but like I ended up falling for him. And when I shifted into your other Kazune's body, I saw the ring he got you.
And I stole it.
So I bought myself my own.
Yeah.
That is so sad.
Very.
Like, brother, you're trying to get with a ghost when you got a real woman right there.
Right there. And she, yeah, I think also her design.
A teenage ghost. Let me
mind you, yeah, mind you, a teenager. Yeah, because he's an old geezer, and he's like, oh yeah, you know, we've been on this journey for six decades. I was like, dude, you gotta hang it up because you got Cosmo's right there.
You gotta see it through, my boy.
gotta hang it up because Kazune is right there. But like, I do think that like her design across both iterations of her are pretty similar. Regardless, though, like
Kazune?
you know, yeah, because like you know, like later into Every You, she cuts her hair short, and then when you get to you see her, like you see glimpses of her in the school during To Me, like when he's walking through the hallways, like all some of the cuts and like the shots that you would see in To Every You show up in To Me, but from different parts, right? Like him walking right past her without looking at her by the lockers and other stuff like that. And she has that long ponytail hairstyle, but then, you know, in To Every You, she changes to the short, and then when you meet her for real in To Me, she already has it short. It's already there, and she's like, yeah, I thought it was like a pretty cool touch. And then, are we even going to talk about Kazune showing up in that one random cut in To Me, where he like accidentally shifts into the other Koyomi's body when they're together.
He shifts into this reality where they're together. So I thought because he sees this vision where like he's in bed with a naked woman and he thinks it's Shiori, and that sends him on this crazy path until he has the same vision and it's Kazune. And then that's when I thought, now I'm getting on board with this movie. Now he's gonna kind of realize like, but no,
nah,
that doesn't get fulfilled until you watch To Every You.
Yeah, like I guess like for you, when you saw that, you kind of got your hopes of like he's gonna end up like sending Shiori off, but also like turning towards Kazune and getting with her. As opposed to me, I already saw the timeline where he got with her, so her being like the second, like the wingman or like the second fiddle to Shiori was a different like experience. And honestly, what's funny is like as soon as like they shook hands, honestly, as soon as he had the flashback, I immediately go, "That's Kazune." I immediately knew. I was like, "That." Yeah, I immediately knew. I was like, "That's Kazune." They don't show that specific scene into Every You, but like as soon as I saw that, I was like, I think he just shifted into a period where he's with Kazune, and then it confirmed it for me when they shook hands and she said his name out loud, and he goes, "Holy shit!" And I thought for a second, I was like, is he gonna address that? And they never talk about it for the rest of the movie.
Never did.
And I was like,
because he's so fucking crazy.
I was kind of upset about that. They didn't talk about it for the rest of the movie.
Because he's insane.
Hey man, you know, trauma makes people do insane things.
This is I think this is a nitpick. My last complaint. I don't I think I would have liked both movies better if he ended up with Kazune in both, not because she's better, but because I start thinking, okay, another anime guy who has to choose between two girls.
Yeah.
Even though it's not as sleazy, it's a little bit more romantic, it's a little bit more dramatic, and it's kind of to show you like, honestly, I don't even know what it's trying to show you.
I think it's reiterating the discrepancies, or like even like the numerous amount of possibilities within parallel worlds. I think that's what it's trying to really explain, because it's like there are situations where, because I think he says it in To Every You, he was like, there'd be 100 Kazunes and 100 Miis, and I would love you at all 100 of them, which isn't always realistic if you really expand it and think about the amount of parallel world that could potentially be out there, right?
Yeah.
So like, I think that's what it's trying to imply, is that like the either timeline, you know what I'm saying, is similar but also very different. Like Kazune is still there for him in a certain capacity, and in one timeline it's purely romantic on both sides. In this other timeline, it's one-sidedly romantic You know what I'm saying? And like,
Yeah.
she really wants to be with him, but he says somebody else. But then in a different timeline, they're together. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's what it was trying to, I guess, imply.
Sure. I think overall they were all right. There was a lot of hype built up. I think it could have been done a little bit better.
Yeah, I think the whole you get a different ending depending on which way you watch it is very misleading.
Yeah, kind of come to the same conclusion.
Yeah, like
I guess the different ending is, one, you end with Kazune, and two, you visually end with Shiori, but they're the same ending, I would say.
Yeah, technically, like you still get. I think what I thought was gonna happen was like the ending of one, and the ending of one would be like something that happens that leads it that could potentially either end the movie and lead into the second one at the same time. That's what I thought was gonna happen.
I was thinking it could be like a good ending or a time loop, because if you watch this movie, it leads into the other, and if you choose to end it there, then that's an end. Or you can watch the other movie that leads into the first, and then it could like loop
They
back
can loop
and
each
forth.
other. Yeah,
But it kind of didn't do that.
that's what I thought. I don't know. I think I saw like something on TikTok too, where it's like, oh, you can watch these movies in any order, and like, the outcome is going to be different depending on which way you watch. I was like, like now you sit there and watch them, like it's both, like they're both follow a very linear.
You could still watch it in any order, and then like when at the end of it, come to an understanding of the story.
Yes,
but there is an easier way to watch it, and I think I saw it that way.
Yeah, you watched the more, I guess, linear version than I did. Like I watched like what transpired because of the other movie, essentially.
Yeah.
But hey, like I think overall, like it was solid. It was a cool experience.
Yeah.
And like I don't know, like I have my own reservations about time travel and just like parallel worlds when it comes to like fiction, because it's like you get situations where
it gets messy.
Yeah, and I think like I said earlier, if the rules are like you can make stuff up, no problem, right? But if the rules are consistent and they make sense, well, even if they don't necessarily make sense, as long as they're consistent, you know what I'm saying? I think like you could have a good story in terms of execution. Like you could say just the craziest stuff, or you could just make up crazy rules that have to do with time travel or other worlds, or you can like put something in, like some kind of like stipulation in that, or omit certain details that one would really think would happen with time travel, and don't put it in there. But as long as you're consistent with it, it's fine. But when it's not consistent is what makes it a problem. I think that's what some of the world shifting was kind of inconsistent.
Which is why we were confused at certain points.
Yeah.
But talking about it, we kind of got to the same place. I'm playing Zelda right now, and this Zelda has a lot to do with time travel, actually.
Yeah, the whole Zelda timeline in general has like the different branching.
But they're keeping consistent, so I'm enjoying it very much.
Where does this one fall in the timeline of Zelda games, though? Because remember, like they have that weird thing where like they can't really place Breath of the Wild on any of the hero's death or hero's journey one. Yeah, you see what I'm saying?
I haven't beaten the game yet, so I don't know. All I know for sure is this is a sequel to Breath, so this would come after Breath.
Yes, which is fine.
And
which is fine, but
that's all I know for sure. I know. I think what they want to do, or the theory is a time loop situation, where because this game introduces a lot of old Zelda, like the Seven Sages, and some things look like the Twilight from Twilight Princess. One of the mountains is called Mount Daphnis, which is the king's name in Wind Waker. It seems like this universe is a combination of all three timelines, so no one knows if it's at the end or the beginning.
Oh my god.
Or it can't be the beginning, because I could sit here and talk about Zelda lore for hours.
No, it's actually nuts, right?
The beginning is Skyward Sword. There's nothing comes before it. Like, it is set in stone that Zelda is the reincarnation of Goddess Hylia, and it's not even Ganondorf in that game. It's Demise, and Demise then curses a Gerudo, which becomes Ganondorf, and it's this whole thing. Like,
yeah, I mean, I've kind of been through like the Zelda lore and stuff like that, like read up on and researched and stuff like that. I just thought it was funny because like when they talk about, you know, that kind of stuff, it's like, where does it fall in the timeline? Or like, you know, when they branch off from certain things, like, and then people are like, oh, Breath of the Wild, we don't know where to put that one yet. And I was like, okay, so then Tears of the Kingdom comes out and I go, where are they going to put this one if they don't know where Breath of the Wild is going?
It's also because Breath, even though Breath was great, Breath was more of a, when you got down to like the story bits, was more of like a character study, because in that one you find out like Link and Zelda, Link was appointed to be her royal bodyguard and knight, and she is jealous of him because he's so accomplished and she can't reach her powers and this and that and blah blah blah. And then you also get points of view where Link and Mipha, the Zora princess, they have a relationship, not Link and Zelda. It's a lot of personal stuff, but then this one, it's a lot of like the founding of Hyrule and shit like that. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I bet. So, before we wrap up, I think we got a good stopping point. Do you have any music recommendations you want to throw some people out? Not any, because our next episode will be a jukebox episode, so don't give the albums away just yet.
No,
just any singles or any songs that you have been listening to.
Well, okay,
since we've been away.
I have an album, but it's not new. It's not an album that I want to talk about on the jukebox.
Okay.
If anyone likes city pop, listen to Adventures by The Square. It is great, classic city pop, Japanese jazz. And one of the songs, I shit you not, the song Sister Marion inspired the Mario theme song.
Really?
Like, it's not even like, ooh, they sound similar. Like, the composer for Mario was like, yeah, there's one part and I liked it a lot, and it's dun dun dun, that part.
And that's, oh wow, and then he just like they pick, okay, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
And then from there he made his own is original.
Yeah, that's fire. That's fire. I guess for me, because I'm not gonna give any crazy away. I got two songs and an album. So No More Lies, Thundercat, and Tame Impala is amazing. That's I need a full length project from them immediately, because that song is a phenomenal. Thundercat's great. Tame Impala is always going to be a solid, very like chill vibe type. So I think them two together works well. Also, Men I Trust, very underrated band.
Oh,
Ring of Past might be my favorite song from them. It's so smooth. It just kind of like, you can put it on at any time for any occasion or any kind of like time of day, and it's always going to be a cool vibe that matches any occasion.
I saw you posted them, and I was like, oh, they look interesting. I got to listen.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I have on Twitter, if you are listening, I have a music thread that I've been trying to keep up. I've been trying to update it at least 1 to 3 times a day. I'm not always as consistent as I want to be, but I'm trying to make sure at least get one song up there a day, right? Go check that out. If you see any songs you like on that thread, please feel free to download them, because I love sharing music with people. But yeah, I put that song in the thread as well. And then I've been kind of going back to older bands and older artists that I used to listen to when I was younger, and I went back to a Kings of Leon album, their most recent one though, like the 2021 one, because I never listened to it. Because I was as a kid and in middle school, like I was a big Kings of Leon fan, and then like I think their a really like I like their aesthetic and their sound as a band.
Sure.
Especially like within, you know, obviously everybody's heard like their older stuff back in like 08 and 2010, but like their newer stuff still has that same kind of like, I'm not gonna say magic. Magic's the wrong word to use, but still has that same kind of like stuff that made them popular in the early 2000s. But their album When You See Yourself that came out in 2021 is a super easy listen, and it's just really a really fun listen. The key song on there that I think I posted this song in the thread as well is Stormy Weather. I think the lyrics kind of hit on a personal level, as well as just the overall sound of it is just amazing. So yeah, so just check those three out, and yeah, I'm again super excited, super happy we got the chance to finally record an episode. I saw there was somebody that listens to our podcast, and he tweeted about how all of his favorite podcasts to listen to would come out on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and now they've either been inconsistent or don't post anymore. And he's like, I actually have the ability to listen to podcasts on those days now, so I don't have anything to listen to. And I was like, damn.
Well, we're back.
We are back. So technically,
we're here to keep you company during your lunch break on Tuesday and or Wednesday.
So we hope we can be of some entertainment to you guys. Hopefully we didn't ramble too much on this episode. I know like I wanted to stay on some kind of like timeline of what we talk about, but I could tell from the early like maybe 20 minutes I was like, we might be rambling.
Too much talking about timelines.
Yeah, that makes me want to get into like if we have a video we watch Erased or watch Steins Gate. Ooh, I think we might have to do that.
Oh, I haven't seen those.
Yeah, I will say Steins Gate is hard to get into because the first few episodes are a slog. I've heard good things about it too, but one thing that turned me off of it when I first started watching it was the first like 2 or 3 episodes, like or even the first like 4 or 5 are a slog. Like they're slow, super slow. Sure. But like Erased is like a little bit different. Erased is kind of like Tokyo Revengers type.
Okay.
So I mean, we might be, and that one's shorter. I think Steins Gate's like 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Erased is shorter, so we could probably knock that one out on a podcast episode if you want to. But yeah, that's been all from us. I've been Nostalgia, as told by Zoe, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.